people would ask me, what makes you jump from here to here to here to here to here? And I was like, how do I do that? What happened? I had to think a little bit about it. And this is where I came up with the drawer method, because it really was an acronym for the steps that I would take every time I decided to jump. First thing you have to do is decide to do it. You have to remove the negative, whatever the negative is. If it's a person, if it's a imposter syndrome, if it's a negative thing in what's stopping you, remove it. You have to apply what you know, because everybody knows something. You bring something to the table, figure it out and apply it. Then you do have to wing it a little bit. You kind of have to take the jump. And then step back and evaluate it, establish boundaries, and then rinse and repeat. And those are the exact steps that you have to take every time you want to make a change.
All right. Welcome to the Business Insider Roundtable. Today, I have the pleasure and the honor of introducing Lisa Begley. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Good, Justin. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So with the Business Insider podcast, some of the things that we like to talk about is really kind of diving deep into what makes you tick, right? How did you get to this point here in your life, in your business, right? Obviously, being an entrepreneur, it's a bit of a roller coaster, right? We know that there's plenty of ups and downs. Give me the 360. Who's Lisa?
Wow. So it depends on how far back you want me to go, but I'll just start a few years back when, let's start in 2020, right? So 2020, as we all know, happened. When that happened, I got let go or laid off, and my husband and I decided we would go ahead and start a business. So I picked up a franchise and became a franchise owner. It took a year and a half to build it out. It was a fitness studio. So there was brick and mortar, there was, all of the things. So it was finding a place to lease, which, in 2020, it probably wasn't my best decision at the time, but I didn't know that then. I was so excited to have my own place of business, be able to help people stay healthy, get healthy. That was my goal. It took, I would say, almost 2 years. It took about a year and a half to build it out. By the time we got started, literally the day they lifted the mask mandate in our county is the day we opened. That was our grand opening day.
Wow.
And it just happened that way, it not planned at all. So we opened and we did well for a while. But I think, and listen, I can make excuses all day long. There are some lessons learned for me. I didn't do a great job at a lot of things. I had no idea what I was doing, and I was just winging it. You can't wing it when you open a business, especially something that also comes along with a brick and mortar.
Yeah.
You just can't. I always say wing it. Just get out there and do it. But that only applies to certain things. So long story short, we ended up closing the business a couple years later. I obtained a job as a contractor with a detox center, like a health and wellness detox firm. And that's what they did. So I worked with them. I learned so much. And it was great. So it kind of it was still in that health and wellness space. And
Right.
I stayed with them for a couple years, made a ton of money. It was great. But there was a lot of chaos in the business itself. It just wasn't well run. It was very chaotic. You never felt safe with your job. It was, not a great place to be. Put in a resignation letter, another lesson learned. I put in a resignation letter and they asked me to stay and help them build a department. And being a newer company with a newer CEO, I should have known better. But, that's just who I am. I'm like, yes, build something. Let's do it from the ground up. I love it. So I jumped in, we did it. And a few months later, they decided that department wasn't going to stay. So then here I found myself without anything again. At that point, I said, I'm in my 60s. I'm just going to retire and finally instead of punching the clock and working for somebody else again. I have that spirit, that entrepreneurial spirit. I need to do my own thing. So I jumped in, I authored a book. I became a life coach. I became an Amazon affiliate. And this is all since February of this year, 2025.
Amazing.
I've done so many things, and I ran across a lot of coaches and mentors and things that wanted to help you, but they wanted you to invest half your life savings to do it. And it was a struggle. And every time I got on the phone with somebody to talk to them, I just couldn't I just didn't have, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't a good fit until I found Project Icon. And that's my family. So now podcasting, if you would have said to me podcasting is something I was going to be doing 2 years ago, I would have laughed. I would have laughed you right off the planet. But nope, here I am doing it. And I couldn't love anything more. So that's the short
Amazing.
version without all of the too
I
much
love
drama
that.
and trauma. But yeah, so here I am.
Well, so tell me a little bit about the emotion behind when you had to close down your brick and mortar and then you joined
Mm,
up with this other company. Did you
mhm.
still have like the longing that was there that said that, like I want to be an entrepreneur, but here I am working this job? Like was there still that feeling deep down inside?
Yes, Justin. And I haven't talked about this a lot, but I had so much, I think, guilt because I felt like I drug my husband and I through this, you know,
Right.
this journey that didn't work out well. One, it was killing me. This was part of the decision to close is I had gotten to a point where I was there 7 days a week. I was working 80 hours a week. I was teaching 8 to 10 classes every week. I wasn't sleeping. I was getting sick. I found myself at the doctor a lot. And I'm a fairly healthy person. No medical issues, thank the good Lord, and no medications. But here, the next thing I knew, I'm taking a couple medications. I'm just trying to keep my anxiety level down, my stress level. I didn't realize. I'll never forget the day we decided to close. I collapsed in the studio and I could barely get to the phone to call my husband to say, "You have to come here and get me. I can't drive home." And he did. And I just sat in the studio floor. He held my hand and I bawled. And I knew then that it just couldn't go any further. I had done everything I
Right.
could in my power at the time. So we had to let that go. And that was such a struggle. But the guilt is what kept me from saying, I'm going to stay an entrepreneur. Maybe I'll just flip it to something else. I did that for a little bit. I flipped it to my own fitness studio, but I still had to have a brick and mortar. And no excuses whatsoever. I just think, COVID, a lot of people weren't ready to be in a studio,
Yeah.
a gym, anything like that. I didn't think ahead on all that stuff. So I made a lot of mistakes, but I learned a lot from it. And so we pivoted short amount of time to see what else we could do. And at that point, the guilt was too much. I couldn't do it anymore. I said, no, no more. No more investing in this. I've got to get us back on our feet. And that's when
Right.
I went to this company and did well for a couple years, and it helped tremendously, and it kind of helped build my confidence back up, but even more so now where I sit. So I'm very
Right.
grateful, but it was a long journey and, it's not over yet.
No, exactly. And we love having you a part of the community and and everything. I mean, you're truly an amazing woman and very special with the things that you've done, right? So
Thank you.
and it kind of brings me to my next question, right? So
Mhm.
podcasting and you're saying Amazon affiliate and all this stuff, like all of that is heavy on the digital side, right? Coming from
Yeah.
brick and mortar and all that, like how was that transition to the digital world, right? I mean, did you take courses on it? Did you just learn it all on the fly, watch YouTube videos? I always jokingly, I play guitar, and I always say the way that I learned was just watching somebody strum on YouTube back in the day, right? So, how did you learn?
Yeah, D, all of the above. Everything you said. I watched YouTube because then I wanted a YouTube channel. So I was like, I'm trying Instagram, and I went to an Instagram makeover kind of person who helped you, promote Instagram. And my intentions were never about monetizing anything. It wasn't about the money. It was more about just enjoying what I'm doing. I love to create videos. I love to be goofy. I'm a little bit like that. So just whatever. I'm just gonna put stuff out there that maybe puts a smile on someone's face today.
Yeah.
So I did. I I looked at I actually did a lot. I did communications classes. I took
Wow.
business. I took technology. I learned from, Sean Cannell at Think Media, from Vin Jang on communication. Like I could name all of these people, right? Kat Colroy from Instagram Makeover, like all of the things. And I just kept learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And I'm still learning. Like I've learned ChatGPT and he's support network. Um, you know, I've learned a lot about that and prompts and all of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you just have to go in and dive in and learn, and I've never been afraid of that. I've always loved learning. I have so much more to learn at this point. The technology piece of it is challenging, I will say.
yeah,
Then there's the transition from the technology. You've done it, you've learned it, you've put it all together in a video or a reel or a story or whatever. Now to get it out there, like there's a lot of that. Another thing I think that was very difficult, what I found, and I'm not even sure if it's the right path anymore for many people, is the email marketing, the
yeah,
having a website, like
yeah,
everything seems to be spinning around. Like I just joined school, right?
yeah,
SKOOL school, right? And they're all about like no email marketing lists. You don't need all that. You don't need a blog. Those are kind of a thing of the past. Like
yeah.
let's work with, Instagram, your
Build a community.
social media, build a community, network that way. And I love it because that's more aligned with my heart and soul of what I really want to
Yeah,
do and how I want to help people.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's so interesting. Like one of the things that I've sort of seen, obviously I've spoken with so many entrepreneurs over 13, 14 years that I've been in business, and
Yeah.
we keep coming back around to the same thing, which is those certain identifiables, which is a good entrepreneur is someone that admits that they know nothing, right?
Yeah.
But will do whatever they can possibly do to make sure that they learn it, right? And I think that that is such an amazing quality, and it's ambition, right? That drives them there. And I think that it's remarkable, right? I mean, when I first started my company, I was knocking on doors asking businesses who, I mean, I was 24, 25 at the time,
Yeah.
and I'm knocking, going into businesses, and I'm saying, "Can I build you a website?" I didn't have a web designer. I didn't have any money. I just wanted to try to get business, right? And the moment I got my first contract, and I'll never forget that company, right? A company that sells like Cisco phones to big corporate businesses, right? It was just,
Yeah.
and I got this contract, and with Jared, who obviously right, my business
Yeah.
partner, and it was a check for $500, and we went and spent it all on food. And then we realized, wait a minute, we don't know how to build a website. And so I spent 48 hours just literally on a computer learning everything there was to about coding and WordPress building and templates and all this stuff. And I ended up becoming that web designer in the company. So we were securing contracts and I would go and start doing, and then it
Amazing.
eventually built up from there, right? And then you get a customer that starts asking, what about a logo? Can you make me a logo? And I'm like, of course I can make you a logo. Jared, how do we do a logo? But that's the mark of an entrepreneur, right? Is someone that will
Yeah.
not give up and will do those things. And sometimes the money, and you almost don't know this, it becomes secondary to the journey, right?
Yeah,
And I think the journey is a beautiful thing, right? And
I
to
agree.
your point, just lastly, when it comes to communities, that is 100% the way we see things evolving now, right? I mean, which is so funny because you look at religions and the fact that community is so tight there, but I want to say in the early days of the internet and all the way up until the last, couple of years, that had kind of broken away, right? And
Yeah.
everybody was kind of on their own little island speaking with a megaphone, and just
Yeah.
yelling whatever the heck they wanted. But now what you're seeing is this digital trend of people coming back to communities. They want to find other people that are, speaking and preaching the same thing that they are, right? And so
Yeah.
it's an amazing evolution, right?
Mm.
But it's, I love the journey. So let me ask you
I
this,
love it
right?
too. Yeah. Sure.
If in 5 years from now, or even a year from now, where do you want to be? Not where do you see yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
But, mental picture. Are you on a yacht? Are you, do you, know how to build websites and logos? Like what
Yeah.
in an ideal world, in a year from now or 5 years from now, what do you want to be doing?
In 5 years, I would like to have another book under my belt, maybe something a little more personal, not as maybe more of a memoir kind of a story. I would love to still be podcasting at that point, maybe just a little bit more well known, and a little bit more familiar and certainly more comfortable. Everything's a learning curve, as we just said. I think also, I mean, I would love to be able to have a little more flexibility in family. We have kids in Tennessee. We have kids and grandkids here in North Carolina. And so be able to like make that fluid trip back and forth a little more easily. So there's that. That probably is going to be like a fifth wheel or maybe a rental, whatever. So just to be able to like live life generally, I'd love to be able to have a lot more connections, and certainly would love to go out and speak to people about this. My coaching business, I've sort of paused on that for a little bit, but I may open that back up. Just something to see. So I don't see myself slowing down in the least. I would love to be able to travel a little bit more, that kind of thing. Have my husband and I go on, I'd love to take that Canadian train trip from the East Coast out to Vancouver, the
Yeah,
West
of
Coast. So I
course.
see that. Oh, it looks just amazing. But yeah, I mean, I have big dreams, but nothing to stop me from getting there, whatever that looks like.
Yeah,
The
I
journey
love that.
is half of it.
Yeah, absolutely, right? The
So
journey is a
yeah,
beautiful thing,
yeah,
and sometimes clarity on, the finish line or what happiness looks like. I think it is very important, right? Because the days get so busy with
yeah,
things, right? And then
for
all of a
sure.
sudden another day's gone by and I'm, sitting with my
Hmm.
wife and I'm going, oh, okay, the boys are asleep. We did it. What do we do now?
Yeah,
Let's go to sleep and wake up and do it all over again. And it's like
yeah,
you kind of get stuck in this thing. And so
yeah,
sometimes I have to remind myself like my mental mapping of where I want to be and what I want, and
uh-huh,
then little pieces of how do I get there, right? And
uh-huh,
I think one of the things to keep in mind is there's so many tools, digital tools, that can
uh-huh,
give you that freedom that you're talking about, right? A community where people will stay, right? And you can check in on them whenever you want, right? And they
yeah,
can buy things from you at any point in time, right?
yeah,
Automations, AI, like all of these things, it
yeah,
you no longer need to be there as often as like when I was a kid I used to see my dad going into work at 5 a.m. and coming home at 8 p.m., right? And he was
yeah,
bringing home the bacon, as we said. And if he didn't do that hard work and put in the hours and get stuck in traffic and all those things, right, then he'd be
yeah,
out of a job. And
yeah,
now my wife, who drives downtown a couple of days a week, she's starting to look at it and she's going, I don't need to do that anymore, right? Like there's
yeah,
so many businesses or there's things that I can do by myself, right? That if
yeah,
I look at it properly, I can take a lot of these things off my plate. I don't need to sit in
mm,
traffic. I don't need to sit on sales calls all the time. I don't need to do, right? So there's
right.
so many resources to help you, and I would say that that's, one of the ways to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I agree. I couldn't, I think sometimes I get so bogged down with like, where do I want to go? And I think this is true for a lot of people. Like
Yeah.
they're not certain of the path. And you don't have to be. I don't like to put that pressure on people. Like you don't have to be certain of your path. You just have
Yeah,
to have an idea, right? And
exactly.
sometimes it's just throwing your faith in God or, whoever, and whatever being spirituality, whatever, and just knowing, just put the faith out there and knowing that you'll get there. You'll get there,
Exactly.
but you've got to keep up the work. Doesn't it
And it
doesn't
doesn't come
happen
for free.
without the work. It doesn't. So many times I can tell you, Justin, over the years, I have felt like this is something's wrong with me, right? Basically, like I was embarrassed the fact that I jumped around, that I did so many different things, yada yada yada. And for the first time in my life, now that I'm here doing the things I love and being able to just reach out and say, okay, well, let me just start another YouTube channel. You know what? Let me try this. Let me try that. Whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah,
Now having that, it's the confidence in being able to do all that and knowing that everything I've done, even though I was all over the place, seemed like for a lot of time, it's not like that anymore. People don't think about that anymore. They look at that as experience and life experience and the things that, you bring
absolutely.
to the table. And I'm so grateful for that. So not
Yeah.
embarrassed anymore. In fact, I hope to be an encourager of others to do it. Do it. Just
Yeah,
do what you want to do.
that's it. I mean, I feel like the age of information has woken people up to the differences in mentality, right? Even like my mother, for example, when I told her I dropped out of university, she was like, "You're not going to be a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer. Like, that's the only way to success. You're going to fail. Oh my God, I have a failure of a son." You fast forward to today, all three of her children are all successful entrepreneurs in wildly different ways. My youngest brother, he owns a brewery, right, with my older brother, right, who also
Amazing.
does YouTube, stuff on the side. I
Yeah.
obviously have, my entrepreneurship, right? And she's so
Yes.
proud of us, right? And it's not the success necessarily, but it's how we carved our own path and we became an individual, right? Not just another
Yeah.
number. And I think those types of things were frowned upon back then, but now everybody
Agreed.
sees that as such a huge success, right?
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, just recently, I have the most proudest moment is our two boys in Nashville. They have just started. They've both been in the roofing construction industry for many, many years, and they have just opened up and started their own roofing company, Legacy Roofing
Good
out of
business to be in.
Nashville. So good, right? Everybody always
Amazing.
needs a roof. That's not going to go
Absolutely.
anywhere.
And what was the name and how can they find the numbers for anybody that's listening? I'm serious.
Legacy Roofing. Yeah, Legacy Roofing. And they're right now they're doing a lot of work to help the folks in Kentucky that endured that tragic weather mishap,
Yeah.
natural disaster a while back. So they're spending a lot of time, which is only about an hour and a half from them. But it's Legacy Roofing out of Nashville, Tennessee. And if there's a number, we can put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
to reach out
Absolutely.
to them. Legacyroofing.com. You can find them and talk to them. And then our daughter and her husband just decided to open up a service center for electric vehicles because he is
Wow.
super right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that's
Amazing.
happening hopefully early 2026. So I
That's
look at
great.
my kids and I go, I hope to some degree that my all over the place behavior, entrepreneurial spirit, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, right, has really impacted them in a way that they know they can do whatever they want. They can do
Yeah.
anything they want. And I hope that
Yeah.
that's helped them, be able to do this here. People would ask me, what makes you jump from here to here to here to here to here? And I was like, how do I do that? What happens? I had to think a little bit about it. And this is where I came up with the drawer method, right? Because it really was an acronym for the steps that I would take every time I decided to jump, right? And it was decide to. First thing you have to do is decide to do it. You
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to remove the negative, whatever the negative is, right? If it's a person, if it's a imposter syndrome, if it's a negative thing in what's stopping you, remove it. You have to apply what you know because everybody knows something. You bring something to the table, figure it out and apply it. Then you do have to wing it a little bit, right? You kind of have to take the jump and then
Yeah.
step back and evaluate it, right? Evaluate and then maybe set up some boundaries, establish boundaries, and then rinse and repeat. And those are the exact steps
Love that.
that you have to take every time you want to make a change. So,
That's amazing. That's amazing.
yeah.
And I can say your children are 100% influenced by you, okay? And I know this as
Oh,
as a son. My father, okay, he used to teach us, well, he used to tell us a story first of all about how he owned a brick and mortar as well, and it was a
yeah.
jewelry store way, way
Mm,
back in the day, right? And
yeah.
he had no experience, but he partnered with my uncle who did have some experience. The whole
Uh-huh.
thing went belly up and he had to declare bankruptcy, and I was, I think, 2 years old, 3 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And because of that, he ended up getting a job that immediately shipped us to New Jersey, which is how I wound up in the US, right? So it was like this whole thing. But when I started my company, he said to me, he goes, "I'm so proud because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and I tried it, but I didn't know how to do it properly. And then
Yeah.
by the time I wanted a second go at it, I had children and things got busy." He's like, "You started at the right time." And he's like, "No matter what happens, keep going because otherwise you're going to regret it." Right. And so I always looked at my father and the fact that he was an entrepreneur, but the timing wasn't right. And I used my timing and what I was doing as like the springboard to say, I'm motivated. I'm gonna make it successful now. Right. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
the rest is history, as we say. But
That's right.
yeah, it was, I'm telling you, your kids, they look at what you're doing
I
and they
appreciate
follow your
that.
path. Yeah.
Ah,
So, okay, lastly. I'd love to ask you. So, talk to me a little bit about your podcast, some of the things you like to talk about on your podcast, and
Yeah.
if someone ever wants to find you on social medias, how do they find you?
Yeah. So thank you. Great. It's called the Sock Drawer Podcast. That's where I created the drawer method, what I just explained. It's the sockdrawerpodcast.com. You can find us there. Episodes are on Apple and Spotify. You can find us there. I also have, well, I have two Instagrams. I have a personal that's at Begley5 because that's the initial Begley, so five of us. So at Begley5. And then I have at Reinvention with a Soul. So that's my two Instagrams. You can find me, Lisa Begley, on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn, Lisa Begley as well. Please come find me. Let's connect. I would love to chat.
Amazing.
The Sock Drawer podcast really focuses on, it's really my heart, right? It really focuses on it. It took a while for us to, it sort of evolved, right, Justin, right? So they know, they're like, oh, here she goes again. But it's sort of evolved, right? Because it started out as one thing and then it kind of came to fruition as it's really a reinvention. So it's the guests that we have are amazing. Today I had the best guest on, talk about him. You know, you can find him. He's Gordon Stein. Awesome. But the guests have all reinvented themselves from, either throughout their life for whatever reason. They've had to reinvent themselves over and over again. And that's what we're about, right? Is finding
Love it.
people that have done that, which is most of us, if you think about it, right? I bet if anybody cannot sit down and think of at least one or two times in their life, whether you're 25 or 85, that you haven't had to reinvent yourself a time or two. So that's really
Yeah,
what it's about, is finding
amazing.
people that do that. Yeah. Thanks, Justin.
I love it. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I
Oh,
mean,
it's my
I love
pleasure.
you so much. You know this, right? We're like
Thanks.
family now.
Yes,
So,
I know. I love
for
it.
everybody, check out Lisa's podcast, please. She's doing some
Yeah,
amazing things, and we'll see you on the next episode of Business Insider Roundtable.
sounds great. Thanks, Justin, for having me.